Hi, welcome to the channel. Today we're going to build a full sign-in, sign-up flow, a Clojure application for that. So the final result will look something like that. So we have a home page, and then if we click getting started, we are now in the login page. We can also go sign up if we don't have an account. And if we sign up, let's create something like test email.com 123. We are logging in, and it basically says the dashboard page with the information about our user. And then we can click logout, and now we are back into our home page. And as we now have an account, we can log in with a login form. Email. Yeah, we are back in. So that's what we're going to build today. I decided not to live code that because there is quite a lot of code in some places. Instead, we are doing the walkthrough of existing code, but the entire application was created for this specific video, and all source code will be in GitHub as usual, and the link is in the pinned comment or in the description box, so check it out. And let's start. So if you watched my previous videos, that stack of libraries will be familiar to you. I usually prefer to use component library to build the backbone of the application. In our case, we'll just have the HTTP server component and the database pool, and that's it. And on top of that, we have a simple ring Compojure application. So we have ring, we have Compojure. We will upgrade our ring session to use database to persist our sessions. And we're going to use this little library to do password encoding and decrypting. So we store an encrypted version of the password in the database for security reasons. And yeah, for persistence layer, we have NextJDBC and Postgres and Hiccup recipe for the connection pool. Also have HoneySQL to write some simple queries, and Flyway to create migrations. And as usual, there is Hiccup for HTML templates. On the front end, there is a bit of HTMX, which is not really required here, but it just gives the application this kind of modern feel. So it's also really easy to use here, so why not? So that's the stack. And if we go to the core, the system, as I said, is pretty simple. We have data source and we have HTTP server component, and that's it. Here we have our database migrations running as a part of the data source component. If you're not familiar with this button, I just suggest to watch one of my videos about database migrations that should be on the channel. Regarding the database, so first of all, we have this Docker Compose YAML file for local development. It basically only contains the database, Postgres 15, and it starts like an empty database for us. And after that, we just want a single migration. It will create the table to store our accounts. The structure is trivial, as you can see. So we have email, we have password, and we have created that just to add an extra field. But basically, the email will be our primary key. So on the database level, we won't be allowed to create two users with the same email. And then, as I said, in password, we won't store the raw password. We'll store the encrypted password. And I believe the algorithm is used is bcrypt, but we'll see that in action in a sec. And also, this is a kind of helper table because I decided to use GDBC session store the library that we're going to use will require this session store table to be in the database. So this session ID will be a key that will be put in the cookie or in the session cookie, and in the value there'll be a serialized session data, so we can put whatever we want there. But in our case, it will be like a user email of the user. Yeah, cool. So moving to the more interesting parts is our routes for the application. So as we've seen in the action, we have this route handler for the home page, and we will have this session key inside request if we have user logged in. So you can see this pattern quite a lot across the handlers. So what we're doing is we're actually checking if this session map is not an empty map. So if we go to the REPL, usually the session map will be just an empty map. And if we do seek on empty map, it will return nil. So that will represent a branch here that our user is not logged in. And if we have something like some email here, it will return some true value, and we will be in the other branch. So here, if we already logged in, we don't want to show the home page again, and we just want to redirect the user to the /dashboard. And this is just a helper that says set the status to by default to 302, which is a redirect, one of the codes for the redirect. If we not logged in, we want to show some HTML for the home page. And I basically decided to split this views, which is plain HTML, into a separate namespace. And the only reason for that is basically because it's a bit long. So I just moved it here. Actually, I haven't written almost like a single line of HTML here. I was using the Hyper UI components. And as I'm using Tailwind, this is like components for Tailwind. And it's pretty easy to use in the backend, in Clojure specifically, because all these components are literally plain HTML with Tailwind styling on top of them. And yeah, some components have Alpine.js, but we don't use that here. So if you want anything from here, you can just go find whatever you like, click copy here. And after that, if you go inside cursive somewhere and you put, just paste it, it tells you if we want to convert it to Hiccup, and you convert it and you have like a ready component for your backend here. So basically that's what I've done for all these forms that you see and all components. Just use some ready-made pages from this library. So check this out, pretty cool. And yeah, by the way, if you don't use IntelliJ with cursive, maybe other editors support this transformation of HTML to Hiccup, I don't know. But anyway, there are online tools that do it for you. If you just search for HTML to Hiccup online converter, you can use that instead of cursive. But yeah, cursive is kind of handy in this way. So we have this home page now, and we just show it. One of the buttons here, as you can see, in the bottom left corner, will lead us to /signin. And here we have another page, and this is the handler for that. Same idea, if we already logged in, we don't want to show the page to the user, so we're going to redirect it to the dashboard. But if not, we have a sign-in page. Again, just plain Hiccup here, nothing fancy. Copy it from the Hyper UI. And we're basically displaying this form. One interesting thing about the form is maybe I splitted the form into its own component, just like a Clojure function, and I can configure it with a bit of HTMX. So on submit, it will be a post request to this /signin, and on the response, we will replace the form with the result. But actually, the only case for that, if we want to show the error, and here we have this error handling. So if the error was provided as an input to this component, we're going to show this block. If we just provide some credentials that are not registered and we submit the form, we have this ugly block saying that something is wrong. And how that works is we now should go into this post handler for sign-in request. And here we have our params, which is email and password. And then we're searching in the database for the account by email. And after that, we're basically checking that if passwords are matching. But yeah, we'll cover that in details. What we're interested in is if this is not true, we basically are in this branch and want to show again this sign-in form, but we now provide this error. And as we've seen here, if this error is not nil, this block will be rendered. So this is the bit when we had like kind of not successful request, and we want our HTMX snippet to replace the form with error showed. We come back to sign in a bit. Let's take a look into sign up requests. So this get sign up is exactly the same. So we basically have this form. Now we have three fields: email, password, and password confirmation. And if we take a look in the post request for that, we destructure these params from params request. And we also have this data source available from dependencies. After that, we want to compare that password equals to password confirmation. So the user typed the same thing in both those fields. If this is true, we continue and insert basically account into database. So I added a comment here, but basically this is kind of naive implementation of form validation. We obviously want more potentially. So we want to check that there is no existing email in the database registered, because now if we just try to insert the same thing, this block will throw an exception because it will be a constrained validation on the database level. But we basically want to somehow convert it to a readable, human readable error and put it back into sign up form in the error field. But now if we try to create an account, test.com, and we basically do an error in the passwords, now we have this error about passwords not matching, and that's because we are in this branch. So this wasn't true. If this will be true, we execute the query to insert an account into the database. So the columns will be email and password. And the most interesting bit is this password thing. So I can demonstrate it here, I think. If we call this bh derive and put a password 123, it will encrypt it with bcrypt algorithm. And basically this what will go to database. And now if we want to check later that a password matching to the encrypted version of the password, we want to use verify method. So it will be attempt here. It will be 123. And we want to compare it with this thing that will be stored in the database. And you see the valid is true. That means they are same. If we will do a mistake here, it will be false. So that's how we compare it later. So yeah, let's run request once again and see how it works. So test home 1 2 3 1 2 3, create account, and here we go. We are redirected to our dashboard. So this was successfully inserted. After that, we created a session, and we want like an email, and created that fields as the session data. There are no requirements to put it only these fields, but you can put whatever you want in the session, so it will be available in your ring request as a session key after it's decoded. So, and also I instructed HTMX to do a client-side redirect to dashboard after this is successfully returned to the browser. Cool. So now we have we are inside, we are logged in, and we are redirected to the dashboard page. And here again, same pattern. We're checking that sequence is true for the session, so it basically means we have something in the session. And if that's true, we want to get an account because, like for example, password is not stored in the session data. And I just want to demonstrate like we get email from the session, and then we can run a query to get account from the database by the email. So we have this account, and we provide it to the dashboard page, and this is basically some Hiccup component, and we just showing this information in multiple places. And also we'll have a button here to log out. So cool. Yeah, let's see what we have. So basically we have this information. If we go to the database and open the editor, so now we have in accounts, we have 2 users registered, and in session store we have this session ID. Let's take it. And now if we go to storage, cookies, and we copy the ring session. How to copy this? Copy. So yeah, as you see, that's the same ID. So basically, as I said, session ID will be the cookie, and the value here is serialized map that we provided in the session key. How to configure the custom session store? It's actually pretty easy. So we are using the library called JDBC ring session, and it provides a custom implementation of session store. So here, when we use the middleware for wrap session, we basically provide a store, and we use the store from this additional library. If we go inside, we can see that it basically implements this session store protocol, and it knows how to write and read data from the database by the cookie ID. If you missed these sessions in Ring, there is a dedicated video on the channel already covering that. So it's not touching these JDBC sessions, but it describes the cookie store and the memory store. So moving back to our application, we now have this logout button, and we can check that in our Hiccup component. So if we go inside dashboard page, that's the button, and the main thing here is actually this hx post to log out. So if we click on that button, it will fire a post request to logout endpoint. which is really simple. So basically, the main thing we need to set is session to nil, so it will invalidate the cookie and remove the session from the database, from the session store. And also we have this hx redirect to the home page again. So the HTMX will redirect it back to the root of our app. So let's click this one. Yeah, as you see, we are redirected back to the login page. So now if we check dashboard here, and if we go there, you see that we are not allowed there anymore because we logged out. And that's because this check is false, and we are basically here, and it says to the browser to redirect it to the sign-in form. So regarding sign-in, as you imagine, it is also simple. So we have email and password now, but now instead of comparing something from the form, we want to use this email to get account from the database. So we search where email equals email. When we got account, we want to check that we actually got it. So we want and account. So if this nil, we don't want to compare passwords really. But yeah, if we found something, we want to check that the raw password that we got is actually same as encrypted password that's stored in the database. And to do that, we using this verify from the body hashers. By the way, we are using this library, body hashers, and it has some convenient functions to encrypt and decrypt, not decrypt, but verify passwords against the encrypted password. So yeah, that's good. If this is true, again, we want just to set the session to something, and now we are logged in again. And as usual, like a front-end redirect for HTMX to /dashboard. So let's see login in action. Was it test.com 1, 2, 3, I believe. Sign in. Yeah, and we are inside again. Can log out, and we are out. I think that's it for the video. Yeah, I hope that will be helpful. As I said, if you want to dive deeper into the code, link to the source code is in the description. So take a look yourself. The application here is kind of ready to be started. So the only thing you need to do is to run something like docker compose app -d to start the database, and then you start the REPL, and there is a def namespace here. So you go into this namespace, and if you run something like component REPL reset, it will restart the app for you, and after that you can navigate to localhost 3000, and the app should be there. Cool. Thanks a lot for watching. Please like, subscribe, and comment, and see you in the next video. Bye bye.